Force. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota statutes section 13D.021 due to the declared local health pandemic. I will now call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll to note who is present. Clerk?
Thor Adam.
Present.
Zach Aiden.
Present.
Willie Bridges.
Present.
James Brown. James Brown. Luke Cunningham.
Present.
William Gullickson. William Gullickson. Richard LaRoe.
Here.
Dan McConnell. Dan McConnell. Jake McCormick. Jake McCormick. Beth Toso.
Present.
Vice Chair Jocelyn Beard.
Present.
Chair Eric Wan.
Present.
I'm going to also call the names of members who are going through the approval process. Eamon Gallagher.
Present.
Bill Graves.
Present.
Katrina Stratton.
Present.
With that, the clerk has determined there is a quorum.
Great. Thank you, clerk. With that, we will proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's legislative information management system, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. Okay, today we're gonna continue with the process that we began with last week. We're rating these various projects. Let me get to that spreadsheet. Clerk, Robert.
And Eric, do you want me to bring that spreadsheet up for the group?
Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got the spreadsheet where we left off last week, and my notes are correct. We were just discussing rankings for MPD05.
Correct.
Robert, make it a little bigger, please.
Sure. Let me clear out some of the stuff like we did last time here. Oops.
And if you could just take us a couple times, maybe click it twice more, and we'll do qualitative criteria as a separate screen. Okay, does that work for everyone? Okay, hearing no objection, let's move on. Okay, so we're on the 4th Police Precinct. Before we jump in here, I just want to make the point that today we're going to get through all of the projects that are before us. So we're going to have to move at a clip in order to meet our deadlines. So what I'm going to suggest is, to the extent that we can live with the discussion that was held last year and probably the last 3 or 4 years for the individual projects, let's do so. If you have any major concerns, please bring them up. Remember that this is just a preliminary rating to provide guidance to the rest of the clique, which means also the Transportation Task Force. Okay, so that said, please don't feel rushed as I try to move us along. Okay.
Christine Stratton's got her hands up.
Yep.
Christina.
Hey, Eric, are we going to get a copy of this after we're done?
Copy, yes.
So we don't have to fill it in as you're going along?
Correct.
Okay.
What we're looking at right now are just the consensus ranges. So you're going to go back and do your own ratings, which is really what we want.
Yeah, but I'm new at this. I want this too.
Yeah, you'll get this. That's correct, Robert?
Yeah, so I'll deliver this back out to the chair of the committee, and then Eric, yeah, if you want to distribute these notes, our end goal is to compile this with the transportation score sheet and distribute it out to all CLIC members at the end of this process.
Okay, great, thank you. Why don't we get started? Okay, MPD 05, the 4th Police Precinct. Let's start at the beginning again. So we did change it from desirable to important, and we were at the point of deciding whether it contributes to city goals to have a 4th Police Precinct. Rich.
For this and anything really, it's too bad to start it with this one. If you could just call out why, am I on mute?
No, you're good.
No, we hear you.
Just explain why this gets little or no contribution.
The reason, this is from last year. So what you're looking at is last year's rating. The reason it was put at little or no contribution was because we were unsure, since there was little guidance from the council or the mayor as to what the new configuration of policing might be. Whether it was going to be a decentralized policing force, in other words, having substations everywhere. So this was not a rating of the project itself per se. It was due to the lack of policy guidance.
Okay, I saw a few of those in other projects as well. It looks like they've just submitted them as placeholders. Are those just dismissed somehow prior to these rankings?
They are not dismissed. The rankings are all, it's a public record of how every single one of these is ranked. So it doesn't disappear, it just appears as a low score later. If we are not locked into what was done last year. I think last year we were in the middle of a lot of uncertainty at this time of the year.
Yep, that's clear.
So we just didn't know what to do. There's probably more clarity now than there was last year for some people. And if you want to change the contribution to city goals, it makes sense. Yep. We're in the learning process. Thor.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you. I was wondering, as far as a comment, you know, I know we're policing. I don't want to go too far down that. I had an automatic rifle fired on my block this past Friday. So those things are of concern for me. The one thing I was wondering, as far as comments, is can we encourage the city council with buildings and whatnot to look at kind of that public safety model as they do designs for the building, of saying this, yes, we understand there might be a need for a precinct, but it might look different with places for social workers or peacekeepers. So
absolutely. And Robert, could we make a note of that? And Thor, I'd like to get back to you about possibly helping us draft that comment that will state that. I'm sure there'll be other people also engaged in this, because it's one of the more important issues faced by our city right now.
Okay.
So great. Kitty.
So when the city decides, being in architecture, I know that's part of the programming, because you can't design a building unless you know who's going to be, well, you can, but you have to know who's going in there, because each section has a different square footage need and bathroom need. So all that'll be programmed in when they decide who's going to be in there. So us making comments about it is somewhat redundant. I mean, if there's going to be mental health care workers or facilities for mental health care people, you know, like outpatient or whatever, that has to be part of the program when they design a building.
Yes, what I would suggest is that's pre-architecture. They really need to come up with a solid proposal. And right now, what you see in the capital request is about all the information we have. So what we'd be doing is giving them permission to explore coming up with an alternative to the 4th precinct. It doesn't start, there's no shovel into the ground. Are you good, Kitty?
Yeah, that's it. The program is pre-design.
Correct. Okay, with that, I think we need to move on. Robert, if we could get back to that. Do we have someone who would like to make a motion as to how we should rate this as contribution to city goals for 2020 to 2027. I'm sorry, 2022 to 2027. A motion?
I would put it as moderate. Just
Okay.
start the discussion.
Moderate. Any discussion? Okay. If not, Robert, I think we have this to moderate. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is traffic maintenance facility improvement. Are there any comments, any thoughts? What I'm going to recommend, if there aren't any significant comments, thoughts, or concerns, that we leave it at the score it was last year. So what I'm going to be doing is going down this list one after another and watching for you to raise your hands. If you're not raising your hands, I'll give it like 15 seconds and then we'll move on to the next one. So traffic maintenance facility improvement. Any comments, thoughts? Okay, with that, we're going to maintain the rating from last year. Let's go to PSD 16, farmers market improvements. Any discussion here? Kitty, please.
You know, that market is really important to a whole lot of things, and the fact that it's revenue generating. Mm-hmm. So it's, I mean, even though they need the money, it's also going to generate revenue. So I think it really should be moved up to important. It's a very important aspect for quite a few people. I don't know if you've all been there, but it's, I think, a centerpiece of the city. An important centerpiece of the city.
Great, that's where I get my Christmas tree. So any other comments?
Us too.
Oh. Kitty, would you like to make that a motion?
Can I?
Absolutely.
Oh, I didn't think I was official yet.
It's just going to be upranked. We're going to move it up to important.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we move the farmers market up to important. Or you know, where okay. Significant. Thank you.
Okay, any discussion here? If not, Robert, you got it? Okay, let's move on to the next one. City Hall and new public service center.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eric, just a quick point of clarification. Is it staying the same on contribution to city goals as well? I was trying to bring up the project on a separate screen and I may have missed if it stayed the same or if it was going to change.
One moment, let me pull back the...
I have it as a moderate contribution to city goals based on last year.
Okay. Sorry, Robert, give me 1 second. I'm running parallel screens here. Okay, there we go. Last year was moderate contribution.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we're moving it from project priority is up to the proposal was significant.
Mm-hmm.
And contribution city goals. Kitty, go ahead.
It should be strong.
Okay. Any discussion here? Rich?
I think we should decide whether we either raise the priority or the goals, but not both.
Okay, it's fair to say. Kitty?
Why?
In comparison to the other projects, police centers, city hall, water services, etc., I don't think we can prioritize the farmers market as our most top priority. I'm happy to call it out that it's important, or that it contributes strongly to city goals. But raising both of those categories is going to basically put this at the very top of our priorities.
Okay, and I believe it does. I've done a lot of research on it, and it's a center point where a lot of people get their food, a lot of people make their living, and it's also revenue generating. It generates revenue for the city. And I don't think, it's not like one project's gonna go and another project isn't. I like to look at these as individual contributors to a city rather than one beats out the other.
Well,
I mean, I know,
in the end, it will rank. I mean, there'll be an overarching ranking of everything, so something will be over the other, which is one reason to reserve some space above this project.
well, this isn't being put as critical. It's being put as significant, not critical. And it's a strong contribution in that the fact it's significant. I mean, I don't know how you can have a moderate contribution with you know what I mean? If it was critical and a strong contribution, that would be different, but I'm not putting it as critical. I'm putting it as significant.
Okay, Eamon?
Yeah, I'm just maybe curious in terms of grounding it in the enumerated city goals, which I can see the economic development and the kind of environmental and the revenue generating impact, but as compared to other projects, I'm having maybe a tough time seeing how it fits into those that are listed in a strong way rather than moderate.
Kitty, would you like to respond?
Sorry, I was looking for my sheet on all of that and it's eluding me. So, you know, when I look at city goals, there's a whole bunch of them. Some of them are soft goals and, you know, as you guys would probably say, soft feely goals, but they're just as important as buildings. I mean, you guys believe that we need a new 4th precinct. I don't, because I've been to the 4th precinct. It's my precinct. So when I look at the city goals in its entirety, the farmers market is really quite it's quite a place in the fact that it revenues. I mean, it generates revenue for the city is, to me, an added plus.
Okay, Kitty.
Eric, you got 2 more hands up and your time is moving here fast.
Yeah. We need to keep moving here, so I'm going to let's do two more comments. Luke and then Robert. Luke.
Yeah, Eamon essentially addressed what I wanted to say, but I would just add that I also agree with Rich that we should choose one or the other, and I would like to suggest that it seems like it's very important to Katrina that we move it up in at least one, if not both. So maybe we move it up on the contribution to city goals because that has a wider points range, and so it would allow you to add more points to it. Is that a fair suggestion, or is that not how this works?
That's a fair suggestion.
Okay, and then we leave it at important rather than significant in that case.
So let's do Robert, and then I'm going to call the question. Robert?
I was just jumping in to check in with Justin actually and see whether at this point, after enough discussion, a roll call vote or something might be helpful. I don't know if we can do that.
Yeah, and Eric, I'll defer to your guidance as chair, but an option would be, given the great discussion around this, if someone does want to make a motion to list this as either important or significant and either moderate or strong, get a second, and then we can have some discussion or roll call vote. And if that receives a majority vote, then that's where it's set. And if not, we can go with another motion if there are some strong feelings and not unanimity on this one.
Okay, so I'm going to go in a different direction, Justin. I'm going to take Kitty's motion, which is to up the project priority to significant and the contribution to strong, and then we'll do a second vote if there is a second vote to what Luke recommended. I believe that's the concrete alternative. Okay, without objection, let's take, this is just raise your hands. Okay, so Kitty's suggestion, which is up it to significant for project priority and up it to strong contribution for city goals. Just raise, oh gosh, there are people who I can't see here.
Might do a quick roll call.
Yeah, do a quick roll call, please, Justin.
Yep, no worries. So the motion is significant and strong contribution on PSC 16. Is there a second on that motion?
Well, there you have it.
Okay, so let's go to Luke's option, which is leave it as important for project priority and strong contribution on city goals. Is that accurate, Luke?
That is, yes.
Okay, is there a second?
I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion and it's been seconded. Robert, your hand's up. Okay, I'll take it
Sorry
back
about
down.
that.
All right, let's do a quick roll call.
Yep, on that motion, roll call.
Yes.
Thor Adam,
Aye.
Zach Aiden,
Aye.
Willie Bridges,
I'm not voting. I can't vote. I'm the vice chair. That's not part of the bigger
abstain.
picture.
That's fine. Luke Cunningham,
Aye.
Rich LaRoe,
Nay.
Jake McCormick,
Aye.
Beth Toso,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jocelyn Beard,
Aye.
Chair Eric Wan.
Aye.
There
Yeah,
is a
ayes have it.
majority, so that motion does carry.
Okay, let's move on to the next one, City Hall and New Public Service Center. Okay, so a little history on why it's desirable. I think this was a little bit of passive aggressive on our part because we did not receive the proposal in the first place, and they introduced us as the project was 90% complete. So we have consistently said it's not a high priority. Any questions? Any statements? Okay.
Yep, Derek,
Yes, please, Dan.
I'll just say, I think, the city of Minneapolis, really, providing good workspace for the city employees, I think is one of the responsibilities of any employer, especially the city, and consolidating people into the public service center and reconfiguring folks, I think makes a lot of sense from an operational standpoint. So I would say we need to get past our own ego and maybe rated appropriately.
Great, thank you, Eamon.
I was wondering if this would maybe be a point that could be made more. I didn't look specifically at the comments from last year, but is this something that we could transfer maybe some of that critique to the comments and maybe move the priority up this year?
That's a good suggestion. The project is almost over. It's almost complete. And however, I think we can use the comment process to speak to some of the concerns we may have. For example, $37 million cost overrun. I mean, that's certainly something that we may want to raise in a comment. So, Eamon, if you're willing to work on that, I'll work with you and anyone else who wants to work on that comment. Any other volunteers? Kitty?
Yeah, since buildings are my background, yeah.
Great. I think we have a team. Robert? With that, I hear no objections, so let's move on to the Hiawatha Training and Recruitment Center. Last year, it was rated as significant with moderate contribution. Kitty, is your hand still up, or do you have a comment there? Oh, okay, thank you. Any other comments regarding the Hiawatha? If not, let's move on to the next. We're going to leave it at last year's rating. Regulatory services, PSD 22. Any comments here? Okay, let's go to PSD 23. That's the MPD Training and Wellness Facility. Okay, any comments, any thoughts? If not, let's move to the next one, PSD 24, which is that a new one, Robert?
It was new last year, and it's for various solar project improvements on city-owned property.
Okay. Any objections? Okay, Kitty?
You know what I'm gonna say?
Yeah, we do. Come on.
It should be a strong contribution, and in there, he's asking for $100,000 to $150,000 more to hire project managers. This is actually revenue. It's going to save money in the long run. This is definitely one of those well-spent projects, and they're ahead of goals, and it should be done as soon as possible. Because you know.
Yep. Any discussion?
This is Beth. I would just say I would agree with that comment.
Okay, that would be to move up project priority. How about contribution to city goals? Kitty?
Oh, I was actually thinking we were moving it to strong contribution, but significant level of need.
Okay, okay.
Well, so these projects can be shovel ready per se as soon depending on what's in the budget. And if Brian has everybody lined up to do them right away, we'll be first in line for these solar projects and any additional money with the government. And one of the things, because so many people are doing solar now, it's wrangling everybody together. And I don't know if anybody believes in the climate crisis, but this is one of the ways that we're going to get out of it. That's why it's significant. It's critical.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to let's go to Eamon and then Rich. Eamon.
Yeah, just to expand on what Katrina was saying, I would agree with her assessment that it's a strong contribution, then also maybe say that this is something we could put into the comments of, given that the potential influx of federal money, that more projects like this could be kind of encouraged because it'll be a greater total amount. And kind of moving more in this direction, given the contribution to city goals. So I'd volunteer, I guess, to help with the comments for that as well.
Great. Kitty, would you also help Eamon write that comment?
Yep.
Okay, and Rich?
My comment is, again, the definition of critical is quite clear. Impeding current services, something that's broken that needs fixed ASAP. I don't think the definitions that we are working with fit this as a critical need. Certainly it is significant and a strong contribution.
Okay, Kitty?
Yes.
A response there. We need a motion from you.
Well, I motion that we put it to critical because it is broken. As if we continue to pay for and use the services from Excel as more CO2 goes into the environment, that's critical. I would like my grandchildren and my children to be able to have a future, and it's critical.
So the question I would ask is, does it go along with what Rich is talking about, meaning the definition that's there?
The way I read the definition, yes.
Okay, I think we'll let's call a roll call on this vote for on Kitty's critical and strong contribution. And after that, if it doesn't pass, then we'll ask for a friendly amendment from Rich's suggestion that we take it down to significant. Okay, roll call.
So the motion is to list PSD 24 as critical and strong contribution. Was there a second?
Luke?
Yeah, I just had a question before we do this. In all of these projects, really, and for me, I'm new. I think a lot of us on this committee are. If it's not listed at critical, that doesn't necessarily mean that the council won't adopt it and take action, right? Like, so it doesn't need to be critical in order to get
Correct.
True.
action, right?
That's correct.
True.
So we can still, could we author a comment that expresses I mean, as a millennial, as someone with a young daughter, like I feel this similar, but based on the definition that Rich pointed out, I also feel that it doesn't meet the criteria of critical. And so, that's naturally, that's sort of a point of tension, but if we are to do our jobs as it's stated, we should acknowledge these definitions and work within them, I think.
Great.
Yeah, I guess that's my piece.
Okay, Jocelyn, and then we're going to go back to the vote.
Understood. So what I would say is that we are trying to come to a consensus on this. But if you on your individual sheet want to rate things as strong contribution and critical, you have that opportunity. We are just trying to get through what we as the HD committee are, as the HD committee are these are proposals. This is not concrete. So if in some places you disagree, you can disagree on as you score.
So
Understood.
with that, Kitty, may I make a alternative motion, which is to go with significant and strong contribution, but have a well-written comment expressing the sentiment of CLIC that this is a high priority that affects so many other programs besides this one.
Yeah, of course, Eric, that's really great. But you know me, I'm going to the way I read definitions and the way I understand them in the real world may be different from others. So in order not to do a whole voting thing, sure, that's fine.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kitty. So Luke, I hear you signing up to help us author that comment.
Yeah, gladly.
Okay, and Kitty, if you're on 3 others, so it would be great if you could also help with this one. Anyone else want to volunteer? Just send me a note, and we'll put you on with that to write that comment. Okay, let's move on to the new one, which is the 911 PSD 25.
Oh, sorry, Eric, just to confirm, do I have the rankings correct? I know that informally we've moved them around. I just want to be really clear before
significant and strong contribution.
Okay.
That's solar. Okay. 911. Any discussion here? This is new, so we're going to have to come up with something because there is no last year. Kitty?
I have a question. If this wasn't on last year, and then for next year they need $7.2 million already. This was kind. How did it move in so quick, or is that typical?
This is not typical.
Okay.
It's a new project, so it's a new project. We get to have the discussion. We get to vote on it. Because it is it's a new project, so we do vote on it, decide how we want to put it on here based on the report.
I understand that, but it's not. I mean, if it was critical, you would have thought that they would have put it in a couple of years ago and then foreseen that. I'm just wondering what happened.
Okay, Robert, could you pull up the CBR for PSD 25, please?
Absolutely, I've got it up right here.
Okay.
Here we go. This is
So,
9 Operations Center project.
Right. Could you scroll down just a bit more, please? Okay,
Make it just a little bit bigger, Robert.
there we go. This is to help people recall what this was about.
And to I think related to the point that's before the group right now, this project received no points for being in the 6-year consecutive request category.
Right.
I've got that kind of hidden on the sheet that we have right now, but
Because it's new.
mhm.
So fundamentally, what they're saying is that the current facility is not adequate for the current services and the staffing that they are supporting. Could you go down a bit more so you can see the cost breakdown? Okay, there we go. So Willie, would you like to explain the bond activity breakout?
I'm gonna let Robert do that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I absolutely can't. This is going to be a project that will be competing with others for the city's limited amount of, what are essentially general obligation property tax supported bonds that are available through this capital programming process. And so if this project is determined to score really, really well, it will likely displace another project that's competing for these sorts of bonds. If this project does not score particularly well, it'll be one of the unfunded projects that's recommended to the mayor's office. And another project will essentially receive the programming for our limited pool of bonds. And we'll get into, I think, a lot of these details once we get into programming, which starts in June. But the city only has $55 million of these sorts of bonds available for projects. And this is where the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee's rankings really do result in meaningful programming decisions. Projects like
I can add, I've been down to this space. I've seen this space. This space is very tight. They need to do something with it. It's not, I wouldn't want to be working there personally because everything, it needs to be redone. That space is not a good space for working for the employees down there. It's down in the basement, in the bowels of the city hall.
Okay, Kitty?
Yeah, I was just, the reason for my question is because as a master plan study was conducted in 2017, and that's why I asked the question is how come it wasn't put in until now? And then they need the money next year. That was just the only reason for the question. I would have thought that they would have put it in sooner. So did they wait till it's like critical?
I think the new building has impacted all of this. I think there's some impact there with this new building, with staff moving around and seeing that space. Like I said, it's not a good space. So I think that had some impact on that building, period.
Okay, thanks. That's what I needed to know, Willie.
Okay, so we need to move on. I'd like to entertain a motion for a couple of rankings here: project priority and contribution to city goals. Anyone?
I would. This is Thor.
Yep.
Significant and strong. I mean, and anytime you have an emergency situation, you need to be able to get through. And anyone who's been on hold with 911 is something bad is happening. So that
Great.
Again, thrown out there.
Thank you. You have a motion on the floor. Beth.
I'll second that. That's I agree with
Okay.
both of those rankings.
Great, thank you. We have a motion, and it's been seconded that we PSD 25, the 911 space, be ranked as significant with a strong contribution. I'm going to put this out on the floor. Are there any objections? Not seeing any. I'm going to let this carry. Let's move on to radio improvements. RAD 02. Any discussion? Rick.
In my sheet, that whole page was blank. There was nothing in it. I gave everything a 0.
Okay.
Didn't the presenter
Rich,
say
let
they
me,
were gonna get it?
I'm trying to bring it up real quick just to see if I can see additional information on it myself.
I thought we were gonna get additional information from, I can't remember the gentleman's name that presented on it.
Yes, Rodney Olson did respond, and we actually have that that Google sheet where we're trying to capture a lot of the back and forth, and we have some responses that have been put into that sheet too. I'm just trying to crack into our system here and see why it might not be showing additional detail, because as a follow-up of the Q&A session, I did see the project team collaborating to try and update their story or their capital budget request.
Rich?
Robert, this is Justin. I see updates have been made. That story just needs to be republished.
Okay. Here we go. So we have information that's been published in the story. Now it looks like it just wasn't actually published out.
Okay, shall we table this one until we have a chance to read this so we can cover the rest?
Folks, this is Robert. It sounds like the idea is to table this one. I'm assuming nobody's had a chance to review any information related to this project, and so that certainly sounds like the idea. Looks like Eric dropped out of the meeting for a second, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
There we go.
Sorry.
Back. Let him in.
Thank you. I'm not touching anything. Okay, so did anyone have a look at that the new, or is it not loaded yet?
Eric, to just summarize, essentially the story need to be republished so that information is now accessible in the CBR. So the discussion is whether a range can be selected based on the presentation and the Q&A session, or if the CBR needs to be reviewed and this needs to be tabled.
Okay, I'm going to recommend it be tabled. No, you know what? I'm going to table it. Let's move on to the next one, and we'll deal with the with RAD 02 at the next meeting. Okay, Water 35, renewable energy at water treatment campuses. Let's see. Last year it was rated as significant. And a strong contribution. Okay, one second. Kitty?
So you know what I'm going to say. So you know, under the critical definition, it says public endangerment if not corrected. And I'm just going to reiterate, as long as they're buying energy from Excel that's putting CO2 in the atmosphere, that's public endangerment. One of the other aspects of this project is it will reduce electricity charges between $65,000 and $100,000 a year. So I would suggest moving it to critical and having it ready that, right now they have it listed for 2024. But I really think they should look at this of having this ready to proceed when funds become available. But I mean, as long as they're buying energy from Excel, there's CO2 going in the atmosphere.
Okay, Eamon?
I would I agree with Katrina that it's an important issue that maybe much like the solar issue, there could be maybe a broader discussion in the comments about the importance of this and maybe other opportunities for energy heavy utilities within the city to look into renewable energy with that influx of federal money. So I just volunteered to help with the comment on that.
Great.
We have, just to interject what Christina said, we have, in the past, we have up projects to a future year, to sooner rather than later. So what you're saying, that can happen. We've done it in the past. We made the recommendation that 24 is not good. Let's bring it to 22 or 21 or whatever. So that has been done.
Okay, I'd like a motion, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Luke.
Yeah, I just wanted to volunteer to contribute on that comment as well, if I could. Given that I'm commenting on the solar one as well, I'd like to participate.
Great. Robert, you got that?
Yeah, Christina, she's got her hands up too.
I will too.
Great, great, great. We might be able to consolidate all those comments into a section on environmental, energy, and perhaps climate change. Okay, that said, any objections to leaving it where it is, a significant and strong contribution? Okay, with that, let's move on.
All right, I'm switching this over to the Municipal Building Commission tab here.
All right. So let's start with MBC 01, which is life safety improvements. Last year was rated as significant and moderate contribution. If no objections, let me see all of these. I'm going to suggest we look at all 7 of these as one package. It's pretty much all about public, about the buildings. Let me see here. So are there any comments from anyone, any concerns, any re-rankings in any of these 7? Kitty.
The MBC 13, the 4th Street reconstruction. I think some of those things are pretty critical as far as making that building impenetrable.
Right.
And to me, that should be a priority because of the current public safety issues.
Any discussion? Rich?
Were those improvements called out in the proposal? I didn't see that.
It was during the presentation. They what were they? They were the balustrades.
Okay. All right. I didn't see those in the written document, but I trust you on that.
Yeah, there was a drawing of the 4th Street entrance as well as the planters, and I believe Kitty suggested that they be integrated as artwork. Kitty, am I correct? Is that?
Yeah, you're correct. So they don't look like, you know, what would you call it?
Right.
Tourist obstruction devices.
Right. Okay, Eamon.
I was just a little curious how this might interact with the 911 operations that are currently taking place in that building. If a lot of the needs that they have for their operations are covered maybe by, I'm just not sure the extent to which that could maybe delay that project or be taken into account in the comment. Because there are significant electrical changes, it looks like, in the proposal.
Okay, I don't know the answer to that question. Dan? We'll come back, Eamon.
Yeah. Well, I think in the past, my understanding of this project was that they were going to put up some new streetlights and new sidewalk, and I think they've upgraded it to focus a little bit more on building safety. You know, I don't think it really, to answer the previous question, I don't think it really impacts the 911 center. It's a big building on the other side of the building. This is completely separate, I believe. But I'm a little more excited about the project now that it's not just, you know,
Light,
streetscaping.
right? Okay, would someone like, I'm gonna call the question. Could we have a motion, please? It's for all 7 of these at once. Kitty?
Are we moving this one up to critical? Because of the safety, I mean,
Well,
I mean,
so,
if you look at federal buildings, they've all instituted those, I don't know what they're called, Eric, those big concrete abutments, so you can't run into the building.
we call them pylons.
Yeah. And that's one thing I think that this building needs, because it would be very easy to penetrate.
I think that's fair. And what Dan was saying, in the past year, it really was about streetscape. But this year, they provided a substantive reason for making those modifications. I'm
I'd like to,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Dan.
and I'd like to include in a comment about, you know, looking at screening, security screening entering the building as well. I think it's ridiculous that that's the one public building downtown that doesn't have that. You know, someone could walk in there and you see mass shootings on a daily basis, right?
Right. So Dan, I hear you volunteering to work with someone else to come up with some comments for the click report.
Yeah.
Okay, Robert, would you take that down, please? So I need to revise what I was saying. We can only do that on the first 5, and the last 2 are new, so we're going to have to come up with ratings for the last 2. So Kitty's motion is still on the floor regarding moving it up to critical. Do I hear a second? Dan?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yep.
Okay, Dan seconded. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in, and I don't want to do this. Are there any objections? If not, okay, Kitty's motion moves, so it's now ranked as critical. Let's move to the last 2, elevator 12 modernization and building-wide electrical upgrades. Any discussion before we entertain a motion?
These have been ongoing projects that has been needed. So they have been working on this for, you know, they've done some of the elevators, they've done some of the electricity. It's an ongoing project. It's an old building, to give you that. So we've had conversation about those projects, the elevators and electricity and everything in that building. So
So Willie, is this, if I'm not mistaken, this is the last elevator that needs to be modernized?
Yes.
All the other elevators in the building.
They've done all the other ones, and this is the last ones that they've been working on, and you know, it definitely needs to be done. So
okay, Willie can't make a motion, but will someone else make a motion? Okay, Dan?
And I'm just going to add that, you know, everything else is done. This is kind of one that was used by property and evidence. It's not in use anymore, or not. I don't see it as a critical need at all. I see it as more like a desirable.
Okay.
As far as that goes, I mean, I think they should obviously upgrade the elevators, but I don't think it's, I think this is an ad that, I mean, they've operated the building without this elevator for public operations for a long time. I don't see it as a,
okay.
More than desirable.
I'd like to entertain that as a motion. So desirable and contribution to city goals. Where would you put that?
Moderate, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, moderate. Okay, we have a motion here, desirable and moderate. Are there any, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. That is, who just seconded it?
I did.
Mr. Gallagher.
Oh, Eamon.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Eamon seconded it. Are there any objections? Okay, if not, let's move on to the final one, building-wide electrical upgrades.
That needs to be done. You know, the electricity in that building, it's an old building. They've been trying to get it up to par, safety for the whole building and the people that work in it. So
Okay, Kitty.
I actually moved this to critical because when you when you look at the report, I can't imagine that this building is functioning the way it is. And if something goes wrong, it would be disastrous for the city, and not to mention embarrassing.
Okay, would you like to move a project priority and a contribution to city goals rating? This is a new project.
Critical and a strong contribution, because it's seriously, I can't believe they haven't done this yet.
Okay, as a side note, the city hall is not exactly all within code, so that's something we've known for a while. Okay, so we have a motion here. Is there a second? Critical and strong contribution. Calling for a second. Jake?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and seconded. Any objections? Okay, Rich.
No objection per se, but I think this might be the opportunity to circle back to the critical and strong contribution for the farmers market and how you would compare this against upgrades to, you know, a public building of critical facility. I think this underlines the example of why it is important to sort of stick to these from a practical and needful sense, as opposed to, you know, what looks good, you know, in the newspaper.
Point well taken. And just a reminder to everyone, and Kitty, I'll get to you in a second, a reminder to everyone that these are just recommendations. So when you do your individual rankings, you don't have to stick with what we come up with here. It's just a sort of an expression of consensus here, and it provides guidance to the transportation task force as they do their rankings. Kitty.
I guess we all have our opinions and priorities and ideas what public endangerment, if not corrected, means. And there are a lot of things that if aren't corrected are public endangerment. It goes well beyond just the safety of a building. Being being a building code person myself, there's a lot more to life than just, you know.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna have to keep moving here. Okay, so I'm gonna call this question. We have a motion on the floor, which is Kitty's to rank it as critical and with strong contribution. And we have a second from Jake, I believe. With that said, are there any objections to this ranking? If not, Justin, you have been waiting patiently. Are you reminding us about time?
Yeah, just gonna do a quick time check. We've gotten through about 12 of the CBRs. We have about 35 left in our remaining half hour.
Okay, let's get moving. Okay, so in the past, we're moving to the parks right now. So Park 02, 03, 04. Okay, is there anyone here who has any particular views about any of the park proposals? Specific park proposals. Okay, let's start with Rich.
Again, sorry, no specific question about the proposals. I'd like a quick review on this overall. It seems like there were 2 or 3 major funding requests that covered everything, and it wasn't clear to me whether those cover the individual parks And part two of my question is, what were there, like 22 separate parks proposed? How in the past do we prioritize them between each other? They're all about the same price, about $1 million per park. Some of them have been requested sooner, some later. Do we round robin per neighborhood and try to make it fair across the cities? Do we just come in as first asked, first served? What's the guidance here?
Okay, I'm going to make a quick comment, and then Robert, and then we're going to go to Bill Graves. My quick comment is that the priorities are set by the park board based on equity. So if you're wondering what the criteria are, a few years ago, the CLIC asked the park board to come up with a methodology to rank their projects through a lens of equity. And much of this reflects that prioritization. Robert, do you have anything to add there?
No, not to that portion. I'm actually not familiar with the story of how the park board has come forward with changes in response to CLIC, except to, I do recognize that they have. But there is that split, I think, in their submittals between programmatic type projects and larger discrete implementations. I know that that's been a subject of review and discussion amongst CLIC members in the past. What are their ongoing programs, and then what are their specific projects that are being proposed?
So some of these are new projects and others are maintenance. Is that correct, Robert?
Yeah, that's right. Some of these are more ongoing costs associated with maintaining conditions of parks, if I could describe them that way. Some are ongoing improvements, and then again, we have specific instances of parks that are being brought forward as well for consideration by CLIC.
So
Rick, sort of like, if I may, park is like an interesting part. They have their own funding that I do. They get some money from CLIC, but they also get money from other entities, their own budget. And when they came to us, it was interesting because we had to do X number of dollars, and now they're back to us. And as everyone's been saying, it depends upon if you're talking about the bike path or the trees or whatever. So they throw a bunch of different things in there all the time. So they're a lot different than what we sometimes normally see.
Okay, and Rich, one of the gray areas is I don't think the park board does a good job of separating capital from operating costs. So they're getting better. That's about all I can say right now. Rich, you have a comment?
Yeah, so I missed this on the first round. I noticed the level of need for each park was listed as high, and that was part of my confusion about how I was expected to distinguish between them. But then there's also another line called the term is department priority. And that's where each park is listed numerically. It looks like the order of this list is the order of the priority. So I think it seems reasonable to just simply rank these. I've got no reason to switch those rankings up. So I would just consider ranking them from 1 to 13 in the order that the park recommends.
Okay, we can do that with the exception of the new projects. We'll come back to the new ones. Okay, Bill? Bill Graves?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep.
I was hoping to add a comment, just requesting, from what I understood from the presentations, Parks funding is unique in that it takes into account its implementation, both public sources of funding and private. And as we, consider our rankings, I think it would be helpful to have a sense of private contributions to site plans, particularly as I understand we move into parks that are located in higher net neighborhoods. Just as think as additional information, and particularly from an equity, if one park has the capacity to raise $1 million in private funding, I think that's important consideration when public policymakers are investing in parks.
We've asked for that before.
So Bill, I'm going to suggest if I know you're you're busy, we could definitely use a comment to that effect. One that is far more probing than it has been in the past, more than a suggestion. Actually, set up the question that they need to answer next year.
Great, I would be happy to do that.
Great. Could we get another couple volunteers who may be interested in helping to develop that comment? Thor?
I can help William.
Great, thank you.
I was just gonna, we had two more parks that needed to be ranked. I was going to, it seemed that we made all of them significant and strong. So my recommendation was to keep things as we had, with adding in the two new park improvements as significant and strong.
Great. Jake?
I was just going to say I can help out with the comment.
Great. Okay, Robert, you got the three people on the comment?
Yep.
Bill,
Yes.
Thor, and okay. Great. Taking Thor's recommendation, ranking these all as significant and strong contributions as recommended by NPRB. Is there a second?
I can second.
Thank you. So let's see. Are there is there any discussion, or anyone would like to object to that? Otherwise, I'm going to call the question and move it. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next. Justin, you feeling better about the time?
I think it's a great discussion, and yes, I'm confident we will get through all of these.
We are here to keep you happy. Okay, let's see. Utilities.
I'm just going to scan through this transportation page and make sure we don't have a random human development project.
Yeah, I don't believe we do.
Thrown in here. Okay, great.
Yeah. So we move to, here we go.
So, right, so now we're on the utilities page. We're seeing a lot of the first group of projects here are the sanitary sewer projects. The second group are stormwater sewer projects, and those were presented on by Director Johnson the other day at Q&A. And then we've got our water treatment projects on the next section, and then our fleet and our fleet projects on this page as well.
Okay, so there are three clusters here we have to work through. In this first cluster, the reason the reimbursable sanitary sewer projects isn't going to be ranked is because it's a pass-through. Is that correct, Robert?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so it's not going to be prioritized. Okay, opening the floor now to any discussion about the sanitary tunnel and sewer projects here. SA 001036 and VR, SAP 3 PVR. Any discussion? Sewers are interesting. Nope. Okay. May I have a motion that we stick to last year's ratings?
This is Thor. I would make that motion.
Thank you, Thor. A second?
Second.
This is Rich LaRoe. I'll second that.
Thank you, Rich. Okay. Any discussion or objections? Otherwise, we're going to move to the next set. Okay, seeing no objections. Okay, now we move to the stormwater system. So in the past, this has entertained a lot of discussions, and most of it was because people didn't know what those programs were. Are there any questions here or any recommendations for shifts in the priority or ratings? Rich.
I believe that based on the presentation, SW 040, City Center Parallel Storm Tunnel, was bumped up from important to significant or maybe even critical because we've now reached a capacity where the high capacity is causing damage to the current tunnel.
Great. That in fact, I believe that's new information that we didn't have last year.
Right.
That's an excellent point. So may I take that as a motion that we increase that to critical and leave everything else as is?
I support that motion.
It is your motion, sir. May we have a second, please?
This is Thor. I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded to just move the Central City Parallel Storm Tunnel up to critical and maintain last year's ratings for everything else. Any discussion? Okay, without discussion, and I'm going to assume objections, let's move forward. Okay, now we get to, we only have one in this area, which is the water distribution facility. Any discussion here? Robert, could we quickly see the
CBR for this one?
Yeah, please. So this is a unique one in that this is the only the water project we have here. Just want to remind people because we always have to remember to come back.
Right.
Okay, there we go. So, Robert, would you like to review this one? You probably know this project from being in the newspapers recently.
Right. Yeah. So just at a high level, again, this is the water facility that's being proposed for the Roof Depot site. As has recently been, I think, very recently been presented on to council. The city has acquired the property and has been, working toward design work. I'm not sure whether or not this project is currently under construction or not, but it's tapping a number of different sources of revenue for the city. We have bond activity, but because of the different activities that we're going to have on the site, these bonds are comprised of, both general obligation debt as well as bonds backed by, enterprise revenue, sanitary and stormwater sewer revenues. I believe there's some internal service funds as well that are supporting this project due to the various activities that are being planned for the site. It's a very comprehensive planning process, and it's been going on for a little while. Certainly not going to be able to do this project the justice that Bob Friddle did the other day as he stepped through it. But this is that project. So,
Robert, is this the project where the community wanted, was an 1.5 acres of this?
That's correct. And
project.
Yeah, this project has been subject to significant, I don't know, just involvement. Although I think there's been some debate around the use of that word. But this project has been the subject of a lot of discussion at council and amongst the community as well. And I think some of that was highlighted during the Q&A process and some of the questions that were submitted to departments.
They've had, since we've been involved, the community's been involved with discussing about the traffic, the flow of traffic, the building, the land, the exchange. This is an ongoing discussion with the community over there. No one's never going to be happy, you know, and the city has all this land. That's the reality I've come to. They have the land. They need the new construction, building, things need to happen. So hopefully, I'm hoping that the community can compromise and to make this going, because like this has been going on for 3 or 4 years, this whole discussion about the property over at Hiawatha there.
Okay, Thor?
Yeah, I was, with all the discussion that has gone on, the one thing that the city actually is trying to have a place for the community to have meetings, to come eat, and then also the job training. There's a lot of, maybe that has come out because the neighborhood has been so opposed to this here, but that to me was a positive thing rather than just these stinky trucks that are coming in. It seemed that they're trying to have some positive things there. So,
Okay, Dan McConnell.
Yep, sorry, thanks. Yeah, and it was at the council last week and then again this week. And, you know, I thought Councilmember Fletcher said it best, you know, like he has the existing facility in his ward. There's no complaints from the neighborhood about traffic or pollution. It's literally like a storage yard for pipes, you know, and water infrastructure. And there's a machine shop or welding shop as part of it. And my understanding, I think Steve Grant shared the article with some of us. It's literally holes in the floor. They're welding on a wooden floor, dating back over 100 years old. It's covered with creosote. I've never been in the building myself, but my understanding it is far from ideal working conditions for the employees. So.
Great. Thank you, Kitty, and then Bill. Kitty?
So when is this scheduled to have a final vote? I know they've been working on, I've been kind of on the periphery watching, but when is it gonna be put to bed as far as the vote?
So Kitty, I'm taking the hat off. There's a problem being encountered right now, which is that this project was acquired out of the water fund, which means that the city will have to reimburse that water fund for any property that's used for other purposes. And I think that's one of the issues being dealt with right now. I'm going to let Dan go ahead because he probably wanted to answer Kitty's question, and then Bill.
I think they postponed it. The next vote's going to be in August. As far as what the action they took yesterday, I think it was, to postpone the environmental worksheet review until August, until they can maybe try and come to some kind of consensus at the council level on this.
And then after that, they have to do an environmental worksheet?
No, they never had to do an environmental worksheet. The project isn't big enough to require an environmental assessment. They did it voluntarily, and now people are asking for a full environmental study, which is obviously more than is required. They didn't even have to do the worksheet. Move Minnesota started a petition drive about it because they'd objected to the amount of parking that was included in the project. And that triggered a lot of comments from a lot of the opponents jumped onto that, which is, you know, there was already a final vote on this. It just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back. So I don't know when it's going to be final, but.
So I have to apologize, Dan. We got to keep moving here. Sorry, Kitty. Amelia, and then we go to Bill.
Yeah, I think all good questions, and you guys have done a really good job of summarizing the back and forth and discussion going around this project. You're right that the last vote was to push back decision making till August 5th. I will just say this project, as you've noted, we need a new facility for these people for this purpose. So they'll be moving forward no matter what. I think Public Works has stated that they would need to pivot and look for and build the space in Fridley, I believe is the latest. If things change and they can't move forward with this place and the water fund issue is tied up. So your comments are really important because this is a project that will continue moving forward because it is such a needed thing. You're right. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, but I would say it's still really worth your time to give this one a ranking, even though it's a little bit uncertain about the timing right now.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to break in here. Bill Graves, are you still here?
I'm still here, and Amelia answered my question already, so I withdraw.
Great, thank you. Justin, and then we need to call the question.
Yep, echoing kind of Amelia's comments, and then also noting that we're simply saying the ranges. The comments, I think, are going to be a better venue for the opinions of the CLIC members on this project.
Good point. Do we have a volunteer to sort of lead the development of comments here? Dan, I hate to put this on you, but you're the most knowledgeable from what I can tell here.
I think I might have an opinion that might be different than a lot of folks.
But it's an informed opinion. That's okay.
I'm happy to try and work on something, but.
Okay, could we? Who else commented here would be able to help?
I'll work with that with Dan.
Great.
This is Thor.
Thor and Bill. Bill Graves?
Yeah, I'd love to be included if possible.
Great. And Kitty, did I see your hand come up?
Yes.
So you're volunteering to also help?
Yeah.
Team? Great, team of 4 there. Okay, so let's do the rating right now. As Amelia was saying, it's important that we rate it. Do I have a motion here on how we should rate it?
This is Thor. I would still at least leave it the same.
Okay, a second?
This is Jocelyn. I second that.
Okay, we have a motion. It's been seconded. Let's see. I'm just gonna. Let's see. There's a hand up, but you're not showing up on my screen. Whoever had their hand up, please speak.
There's no hand up on my screen.
Yeah, it came back down. It's okay. So without objection, are there any objections to moving forward with it project priority being significant and contribution being strong? Any objections? Okay, if not, the comment, we'll have the group get together. Dan will call the group together for comment. Okay, now is this the last group, Robert?
That's correct.
Okay, okay, folks, we have 5 minutes for, and there are 3 new ones here. So let's very quickly, Fleet 01, last year we had a comment on that to ask them to separate fuel from charging stations, and I believe the speaker said he would do it. I would like there to be I will write the comment to make sure that they separate it next time. Okay, any discussion for Fleet 01, 02, or 03? Kitty.
When you write the comments, can you put some stuff in there, because Toyota is now selling a hydrogen car and they're looking at putting hydrogen stations in, and I know Minneapolis has been waiting till it's kind of the thing to do, but it'd be nice to also include in there some maybe there's going to be money to put in a hydrogen station, especially since Toyota is pushing that car pretty heavily.
Okay, Robert, Kitty, and I will work on that comment.
Okay, we'll do.
Any other comments? Otherwise, Kitty, your hand is still up? Okay. Otherwise, would someone make a motion to maintain the same ratings we had last time or to amend those ratings?
This is Thor. I'll make that motion.
Which to maintain the same ratings?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
This is Beth. I'll second that motion.
Great, thank you. Okay, is there any further discussion or any objections? Okay, otherwise, let's move these. Okay, now we have the final four here. Motor pool management systems, fuel ICU upgrade, tire balancing equipment, and track a key, which I still don't know where that word came from. Any discussion here? Okay, no discussion. Would someone like to make a motion? If you'd like to make a motion to cover all four of these at the same time, that would be totally acceptable.
Significant, moderate.
Okay, we have a motion. Was that Dan?
Yep.
Okay, significant, moderate across the board. Any discussion?
This is Thor. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion that's been seconded. Is there any further discussion or objections? If not, then it is adopted. Okay, so we have one outstanding that I'd like to hold till, there we go, radio improvements. How would you like to, anyone have any feelings on how we should proceed with this, or should we just give it the same rating as the other projects in this cluster? Kitty.
When he gave that presentation, it was all about after the events last year, how critical all of this equipment was. Yeah, so if you want to wait, that's fine. But I mean, I would think that some other people would think this is pretty critical too, to be able to have a more cohesive kind of system than what they found out that we had.
Okay, Eamon?
I would maybe comment that since this is a new project and I still, and I might be wrong in this, that we haven't gotten a whole lot of guidance about strategies in policing and kind of how that's going to be envisioned in the future, that this could accommodate that same kind of a comment that the 4th precinct previously had, that there really should be some more guidance before something like this can really be ranked as the city goals. And I would volunteer to write that comment too, or to work on that comment.
Great, thank you. Dan?
I would agree that it's a critical need, whether or not no matter what the public safety function in our city looks like, they need to communicate. They need to be able to respond to citizens' needs, similar to what the 911 center, at least, if not more. I guess I would move it the same as the 911 center.
Okay, so is that a motion, Dan?
Yep.
Okay, do we have a second?
This is Thor. I just want to clarify, though, that the 911 center looks like it's significant and strong and not critical. So just want a clarification.
Dan?
I'm open to either. I just as I was talking, thinking out loud, maybe. It's a thing that's the same priority as the 911 center. I think we should rank it the same as the 911 center.
Okay, Dan, so your motion now is that it be significant and strong. Do we have a second?
This is Thor. I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion that's been seconded. Significant and strong contribution. Any further discussion? Besides, Eamon has agreed to include some discussion of this emergency management response. Any discussion or objections? Seeing none, I believe we have accomplished our task. We're just 2 minutes over, and I can't thank you all enough for being patient with me. I'm sorry that I can't be as democratic as my instincts drive me to be, but we've accomplished our task. Let's make sure. Robert, have we finished?
Eric, that's right. We've gone through all of these projects. Per my notes, each of these projects, we followed the same process of identifying a motion, finding a second, and then calling for any objections. And we've done that for each of these projects until to this point we have essentially a bundle of projects, and we have group ratings for each of these projects that can be moved to the larger click committee now.
Great. So the next two steps, the first step is that you will forward this to me to forward to the task force members. And number two is within that transmittal, could we have a summary of the comments that we've agreed to prepare, as well as who's onto each of those comments?
Yes, I've noted which projects we had some pending comments, and the folks that wanted to participate in developing those comments.
Great. And if there is no clear leader for any of those, you're going to be randomly selected for that assignment. So Dan McConnell, your hand is up. Oh, your hand is down. So Justin, are we done here?
Yeah, great job, task force and chair and vice chair, getting through all of those. Again, a reminder, these are the ranges that are recommended by the task force. Click members are welcome to go outside of those ranges as you work on your individual scores. And without objection, our next meeting will be the public input session tomorrow evening, and then the task force meeting next Wednesday. The conversation certainly continues as you all develop your comments.
So I would encourage everyone to attend that public input session. It's interesting to hear what the public has to say. Hopefully we'll have more attendance than we did last time, and we're working on that right now through I believe the neighborhood associations. If we can get the messages out. With that said, I am going to. Oh, okay. Kitty's made a motion to adjourn. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Eric.
Everyone. Thanks, Eric. You got through it.